session. In fact, probably my worst in a while, but it was so fun. And it wasn't even like, there wasn't waves. It was like, I just wasn't, maybe it was all the pressure because I was getting filmed by JP and but I just wasn't, and all my best waves were on the other side of the pier where nobody was filming.
Oh, of course.
And they were better over there, but JP couldn't get over there, so.
Yeah, bruh!
Cool.
Alright guys, it is February 28th, the last day of February this year. That means tomorrow's March 1st, so I'm going to be getting rid of this beard. And I actually wanted to get rid of the beard weeks ago, but pretty much waiting for this moment, so I'm going to rock the mustache for all of March. So here we go. Whoa, what happened? Alright guys, so this week I'm going to give you guys my top 10 list of my favorite waves that I've ever ridden on Lake Tahoe. Pretty crazy that I've now surfed it so much that I've gotten some of my favorite waves of all time on Tahoe. My number 10 favorite wave on Tahoe was the time when I filmed the How to Surf Lake Tahoe video, and of course I got no waves that day. And right before I was leaving town to get back to Reno, it started dumping snow and there was little tiny rollers breaking at Kings Beach in California. So I was like, screw it, I'm already here, I'm about to leave, I'm just gonna jump in the water, get a couple waves and go home. So yeah, my number 10 was the little rollers at Kings Beach, Lake Tahoe. Alright guys, that was super fun. Just got out of the river with John. Best Tahoe wave number 9. A Sand Harbor Dawn Patrol session. This is actually the session where I met John. I had driven all the way up there while it was still dark out, and I got to Sand Harbor probably around 6 or 7 a.m. This was last February 18th, 2018. As the sun rose, Sand Harbor was literally firing. And we went out after just meeting each other and caught a few waves together. This happened to be right before I started vlogging, so I have no footage of this session except for a couple of John's waves. I caught one wave in particular that was really steep, and I just slid down the face of it and maybe caught it for just a couple seconds before just falling completely on my butt and into the cold water. Number 8 on my top 10 list was actually the same exact day, February 18th, 2018. I had to leave Sand Harbor because I left a note on my car asking if it was okay for me to surf without paying the $10 fee, the parking fee. And when I came back from my first surf sesh, I looked at the note on my car and somebody had actually written back stating that I needed to pay with a check or cash, and of course I only had credit card. So I ended up leaving and heading toward Kings Beach, and on my way to Kings Beach I happened to look over and I saw of the most perfect waves I had ever seen on Lake Tahoe and still have ever seen. Now this wave is going to make number 8 on the list solely because I never landed a trip on it. Like, I never actually surfed one of those waves. I paddled out there with my 9'2" longboard. They were about 5 foot. They were almost overhead waves, and they were breaking on rock off the jetty and incline. Yeah, it was a sketchy situation. It was the first time I ever surfed at a jetty point break, so I had to actually jump off the jetty at the perfect time with a 9'2" longboard, and then I was attempting to drop in on 5 to 6 foot waves on that longboard. So I actually tried to drop in on one, and then I got out. But the waves were absolutely perfect, and if I would have caught one of those, that would absolutely be in my top 3 at least. So like I said, the only reason this wave gets the number 8 spot is because I didn't actually complete one of the waves. Alright guys, wave number 7. My 7th best Tahoe wave of all time was back during last summer when I was predicting some pretty sizable swells at Sand Harbor, and I actually called up to Marcus at Adrift and asked for a surf report, and he said him and the boys were going to get out there on paddle boards. He said it wasn't big enough for regular surfing, but I was already on the way up, so I figured I'd look. Went and checked Sand Harbor, not rideable. Went to Kings Beach, ended up scoring tiny little rollers, and it was just super fun to be out there with the guys and paddling around, surfing. There was definitely a couple fun rollers that I was able to catch almost onto the beach, and it was just a really fun day. So I'm gonna call that number 7 on my list. Number 6 on my list comes from my video surfing big waves at Lake Tahoe, which is actually my most viewed video on my channel. And this was the first time I ever had a GoPro in open water. I had GoPro'd a little bit on the river downtown. So yeah, I was just super stoked. This was literally the first day that I ever had the GoPro on in Lake Tahoe, and I was able to catch a few rollers. Some of them were about 2 or 3 feet, so they were pretty sizable, and nice and, not super steep, but steep enough to where I was dropping in a little bit, and it was super fun. We were out there with all the guys, and pretty much it seemed like everybody was out that day. Now during this session though, there was one wave in particular that sticks in my memory. Basically I paddled down to like the east end of Sand Harbor, and I paddled into a really sick steep wave and did a hard right turn, and basically like the water had sucked up off the sand, and I was like riding on the sand and just basically face planted into the wave and just got smashed into the sand. It was pretty intense wipeout, but it was super fun. So that's the one that sticks in my memory. There was better waves that I had that day, but I'm gonna go ahead and call that my number 6. Number 5 on the list goes back to last September 2018. I took my friend Aiden, who worked at the surf shop with me for a couple months, for his first surf session, I think ever. Maybe he surfed in the bay or something like that, but I had to drop off a board beforehand. But by the time we got to the beach, the wind had died off, and we thought we were kind of gonna roll up to the beach and there was gonna be nothing, and there kind of was nothing. But we ended up finding, some pretty nice tiny waves in Kings Beach, California, and we scored enough pretty much on into the sunset. It was great. We rode for like 2 or 3 hours, especially John and Hopper and I. We were riding and pretty much following. It was funny because as the wind was dying off throughout the night, the wind direction was changing slightly east, so we basically chased the waves by paddling further east throughout the entire session. We just kept paddling through, and yeah, it was just a super fun session. I got a couple ankle barrels, as I like to call them, where they were just peeling perfectly right over my ankles, and they were super small waves, but it was fun, and it was great summertime action. So I'm gonna call that my number 5. Number 4 on my list was actually pretty recent. This was New Year's Eve 2018 going into 2019. We scored some waves which randomly showed up on the west shore of Lake Tahoe, which pretty much never happens. So that was a total adventure. We had no idea where we were going to surf. We had no idea where the waves would be breaking, or how they would look. We basically just chanced it, drove up there, and we ended up scoring, John and I. So found some great waves, gnarly current, but we found some great waves. This was pretty much the first bigger session of the 2018-2019 winter season. I was able to score a couple little rights that were pretty much perfectly formed, and I mean, up until then, I want to say that those were kind of my best GoPro shots of Tahoe at that time. So I was super stoked on that session, and it was just so much fun to be out there catching the waves, the bigger waves again with John. So that's number 4. All right, now we're getting into my top 3. Okay, these top 3 are pretty much my top 3 for a reason. Some of the other ones were a little bit of a filler. These top 3 are absolutely my favorite GoPro shot, and my favorite session, and my favorite wave that I've ever gotten on Tahoe. Number 3 on that list was, again, last summer at Sand Harbor. I took the kids up. It was really smoky, and there was a lot of fires going on last summer. So it was really smoky down in Reno. We drove up to Tahoe. I wasn't sure there would be waves, and I thought actually the smoke would be just as bad. But we got up there, the smoke wasn't nearly as bad, and the waves were way bigger than I thought they would be. So we totally scored on that session. It was cool to have the kids and the wife on the beach kind of rooting me on. And there was one wave that I literally I saw it coming at me, and I freaked out, and was just like the adrenaline rush from seeing that wave coming at me and knowing that I'm in the perfect position for that wave. I was tripping. And then I dropped in on the wave. It broke perfectly to the right. I went right, and there was some kids playing in kind of, waist high or chest high water, and I basically went straight at them and kind of put my arms out, and it was just like the perfect wave. It was perfect. It was up until that point, it was the best wave I had ever surfed in general, let alone on Tahoe. So I was just freaking ecstatic from that session, and I couldn't believe that I got that on tape. It was amazing. Now it's kind of funny, my last 2 on my list were actually within the last 2 months, or maybe even 1 month. Number 2 on the list, surfing all the way onto the sand at Sand Harbor in Nevada during whiteout conditions. This day was crazy. I wasn't even sure I was going to make it up there. The roads were horrible. John and everybody else couldn't even make it up. Mount Rose Highway had a 7-car pileup. The roads were really bad, and it was dumping snow. I actually helped somebody out of the snow that was stuck in their truck on the side of the road. And I get to Sand Harbor, and I'm like, okay, you got 30 minutes, and then you got to get the hell out of here before you get stuck. I basically just jumped out of my truck and literally just surfed for 30 minutes and got out. But during this session, I caught some of the best waves I've ever gotten on Tahoe. One of them in particular, I caught all the way onto the sand, and I ended up running off my board and just falling on my back on the sand, and I couldn't believe that happened. It was like the best. It was like the best feeling I've ever experienced. And to be out there with, just complete whiteout and just snow everywhere. It was a total trip. All right, guys, that brings me to number 1 on my list. Now, number 1 is basically number 1 because of the session itself, not necessarily the wave. If I had to pick like literally the best wave of my life and not consider circumstances into the picture, it would probably be number 2 or number 3. Those were like my best waves I've ever gotten. But number 1 is number 1 for a reason. Number 1 was surfing with Ben Gravy at Incline Beach in Incline Village, Nevada. I kind of sucked on this session, to be honest. I didn't catch very many waves. I think I caught 4 or 5 waves in the entire session, which was almost an hour long. And yeah, I just didn't perform very well, which was kind of unfortunate. But just the thrill of being out there with Gravy and Willax and just ripping a couple waves was super fun. I didn't catch very many waves on the side of the pier where all the filming was being done. And I actually paddled with Ben underneath the pier in between these other 2 docks and scored a couple waves with him over there, and that was literally my best ride that I got in the entire session. I rode from all the way out where the docks are and rode the freaking wave all the way in on the sand, and it actually peeled up off the sand and I fell flat on my face pretty much. But it was definitely the best wave of the session, despite, you know, eating at the very end. But yeah, just the fact that it was the session with Ben Gravy and then I caught a couple waves that were just killer. I was just frothing, and I'm still frothing on that session. So alright guys, hope you enjoyed my top 10 list of my favorite waves and best waves I've ever gotten on Lake Tahoe. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you next week. Woo!